So let's start with the news itself. Washington State has already lost their offensive coordinator, their starting quarterback, and now this morning their head coach, Jake Dickert, headed to Wake Forest to take over their football program. This just 2 days after Dave Clawson resigned. What does this say about Washington State, Bump? Obviously, you're an alum and you feel passionately about this school. How did you react to the news? How did you feel about the news? And then where did your analytical part of your mind go?
My first reaction was fight for Washington State. Win a victory.
Single tear.
But, it's this is just the reality of the situation. Washington State didn't have enough. We offered John Mateer $1 million. $1 million in Pullman makes you a $100 millionaire, essentially. All right? And he turned it down because other schools have bigger banks. I'm like, all right, we saw that happen. And as soon as someone has a good year at Washington State, you just assume that he's going to dip. All right. Hudson dipped, and he wasn't even the best receiver at Washington State. You're going to get better offers. Understood it. Is what it is. That's our reality. Then with Coach Dickert, I was surprised, but then I wasn't at the same time because I go, Wake Forest. Wake Forest, man. I'm looking at the comparison and the football tradition and all that stuff, but I go, but they got more money. Like Jake Dickert was literally sitting there saying, I can't do this. I am stressed the F out. I'm developing guys. They're leaving. We're giving them $1 million. We can't compete every single year. I have to build a new team. That is stressful. And you know what he does with that stress? Takes it home to wifey. The kids feel it. He's not the vibrant person that we know that he is. I don't blame the man. I mean, I wish he would stay, but I understand. It's a better opportunity over there. And it's crazy that we're looking at Wake Forest, a football program that has 2 double-digit winning seasons since 1908 or something like that. And he said, look, I'm going to the ACC where I think that I can compete because we'll have more money. I can hold guys down. I can go out and poach some guys if I need be. You're not poaching anybody if you're Washington State. You're just going into the portal and saying, look, we can help develop you. So it's just a frustrating situation, but that is the reality of being a Washington State Cougar. We don't have the resources that other schools have, and you need to get somebody who has connections to the school. You should hire 4 or 5 former players to help build this program. The head coach, you go get the most experienced guy, but this is what I would do. I would hire 4 or 5 former players as assistants, let them develop and grow, then one of them take over eventually. Now you have that connection. You need guys with connections. The unfortunate part is the last time we had a guy with connection was Paul Wolf, and that was the worst thing that happened to our organization. No disrespect to Wolf, but he knows what his record was when he was there. So my first reaction was sadness, frustration, but then I understand. I ain't mad at Dickert. I ain't mad at Mateer. I'm not mad at Cam Ward. I'm not mad at Hudson. I'm not mad at anybody who enters that portal or goes and gets a better situation, because that's what life is all about. Survive, advance, right? Help out your family. Give yourself a better opportunity. So those are my initial reactions.
I think that a lot of people were confused when they saw Wake Forest. It's one thing to think, for me, a UW alum, I look at Kalen DeBoer and I go, well, look, not only are you chasing the bag going to Bama, but you're also getting an opportunity to coach at one of the most storied football programs in the country. I got it. I understood it. It made sense to me, even if I didn't like it and even if it completely ripped apart my program. Wake Forest, I think for some Coug fans, they were like, well, why? Like, this isn't a school that I would anticipate would come in and poach my head coach, so why? And I think it ultimately comes down to the transfer portal and how that might be different for a school like Wake Forest with their academic regulations. And then also NIL money and those pockets being a little deeper than people think with Wake Forest.
Yeah, all pockets are deep. I know people are like, well, he's going to win 4 or 5 games. Yeah, probably, at least to start. But he feels like he can build over there. He feels like he has a legit chance to do something and to have some type of stability. Here's the jacked up part is that Wake Forest is one of those schools in the ACC to where if you do have a good year, some of those guys are going to leave as well. But you have the financial stability to go and get players, man. And Jake is a smart dude. He weighed out all his options. He's looking at WSU and Wake Forest, and there's clearly an advantage for him over there with Wake Forest. People are looking at the record and saying, oh, well, he's going to do this and that. He might do that, man. But it's about the stress, the quality of life, man. If you see my guy Dickert in these last few days in these interviews, he looks burnt out. He looks defeated. He looks like, what do y'all want me to do? And anybody hating on Dickert right now, I mean, you got to understand, he ain't from here. He ain't from Washington, from Wisconsin. All right, he went to Wyoming, then he went to WSU. This is his path to hopefully being a head coach at one of the Blue Bloods. That's what everyone does this for. You want to be a head coach at a Blue Blood. That's why Kalen DeBoer comes here for 2 years, does his thing, and boom, he dips. This is college football. It hurts because as Cougs, we understand that we don't get coaches like this all the time. We don't get them. We don't get teams that are great all the time. We go like every 3 years in a 10-year span, we'll get a squad like that. That's the reality of the situation, so that's why it hurts. But I am not mad at Dickert. I wasn't mad at Chung when he left to be AD at UW. I wasn't mad at Mateer. Living this reality. It's up to us to try to do something. We got to open up our pockets, man. I don't know if our pockets are that big.
Joe in Bellevue, speaking of those pockets, says, I'm surprised some of the wealthy alumni of Wazoo and UW to some degree, I would swap that, aren't stepping up with big dollars. I think football is different regionally. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think there are wealthy Wazoo alum. There are wealthy UW alum. People in tech, people with a ton of money. I mean, one of the richest people, I don't know about in the world, but is an Oregon State alum.
Yep.
Is like a big name in AI development. But do you care about football? You know what I mean? It's also about the relationship that those alum have with the school, with the football program. And football regionally in different areas of the country might mean more to certain people. I don't know. That's just kind of like how I've always looked at it, because I thought the same thing before. Like, I know there are rich UW alum, but how much sway and how much power does the school, does the football program have over those pockets? Bump, what does it say that for Dickert, more than wins and losses, more than the prestige of another program, this isn't Ohio State swooping in, scooping them up, that the transfer portal and NIL might have impacted him more than anything? Like, what does it say about the state of college football that a head coach did what I think some people would think is a lateral move, but it's because it made, for him, I would imagine, it made sure that the transfer portal and NIL would impact him less.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, you heard of the red line theory? It's like when real estate and brokers were keeping minorities out of certain neighborhoods because they wanted to keep it rich and pure.
Yeah. Oh, no, very
their
real.
words, right?
Yes.
That's what this is. It's like NIL is a red line. Look, we're trying to keep the rich rich. Y'all broke. Y'all stay broke. WSU, stay broke. New Mexico, stay broke. There's no competing at this point. You got to get lucky. And the thing about Washington State was that you would get lucky every now and then. You would have a class with Eric Coleman, Hamza Abdullah, Carl Pamo, Ryan Leaf, and you get those guys together, and they're going to stay together for 4 years and compete for 4 years. One of the reasons why I went to WSU was because they had back-to-back-to-back 10-win seasons. They built something there with their core guys. Nobody's leaving. So now it's, you have one good season, there is no building. There is no, okay, next year we're going to improve with our core guys and move on. Unless you're Georgia, unless you're Bama, unless you're these other schools. And even they are losing guys, but they're not losing them at the masses, and they're not losing their top names. There's no more building. It's one and done. You get a team together, it's like an NBA team that grabs a whole bunch of veterans and says, all right, this is it. It's like back in the day when we had Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Shaq, and Kobe on the same team. Like, this is it. We knew we had one shot. If it didn't work out there, we knew it was over. The Pistons jacked us up. That's what this is right here. It's for the smaller schools, for the red line schools. It's one and done. If you cannot win this year, you can't go all the way, then expect disaster, because schools are going to come poaching. And they've been talking to Mateer since week 6. Guarantee you that. Actually, week 1, when he came out and threw for like 300, 400 yards and introduced himself to the world, they're like, oh, what's going on in Pullman? And the tampering is crazy with this. It is nuts, and there's no way to really track what's going on. Guarantee Mateer knew he wasn't coming back. He knew for a while he wasn't coming back. But can you blame the young man for taking the opportunity? Guarantee you Dickert was thinking about it like, babe, I cannot do this. I am stressed the F out. How am I going to compete? And Dickert is a competitor, man. He don't just want to go out there and throw any type of team on the football field and pray for the best. He wants an opportunity to win, or at least an opportunity where he feels there's financial stability, and we just don't have that at WSU.
And what's weird, and now we're just talking about the transfer portal, this also affects bigger schools. I mean, a current college football playoff team, Penn State, just lost their backup quarterback, and I know that you guys just think like, oh, well, it's a backup quarterback, but Bo Pribula is a big part of their offense. He plays a pretty notable amount of snaps with the way that they use him in some of their kind of swap out quarterback packages. So this is pretty notable for Penn State, and they did that because of the transfer portal window ending on December 28th. While there's a spring window, you have to keep this lined up with the academic calendar. I saw someone someone texting in earlier saying, well, they should make it to where there's a consequence for transferring. Maybe you have to wait a year or two. 2 years would be way too long. But the point is that the transfer portal did change those rules to where you could go immediately. The only lingering problem is that it still lines up with an academic calendar. And that academic calendar does not line up with the college football playoffs right now. So you have guys that have a December 28th deadline where they can't play with their current school, once they sign up with that new school. But they got to get to those new schools. They got to enroll in classes. They got to get into that academic calendar. And for some reason, the NCAA has decided to have just complete lack of oversight when it comes to this very serious problem.
The NCAA is trying to build a house, and the process is all jacked up.
You know?
It's like you got the foundation, but you're trying to put the electrical in without the framework, and then the drywall guys are here, and they're looking like, where's the frame? And then the drywall guys put it up, and then the electrical guys are like, there's nowhere for us to work. It is chaos right now. It is chaos, and it's partly because this was a rushed process. It's because the courts got involved and said, you know what? Hey, open it up. Open it up right now. And I blame the NCAA because they profited so much off of these guys for so long. But then I'm also like, well, they really haven't had time to really think this through and try to fix some things. Now, where do you go from here? Like, where do you go from here? You have to come with a plan and make it make sense. I would talk to the leaders in your sports. I talk to all the top dogs who are head coaches, all the top dogs who are football, basketball, baseball, soccer, gymnastics. Put a survey out there or get together somehow and line this thing up to where it makes sense to these guys. I'm not in that mix, so I don't have the answers for you. But I am looking at a house being built, and I'm looking at the process, and it is all jacked up.